Among the many great historical milestones of 1968, perhaps the greatest was the advent of sex education in the schools.
Now, if I hear any giggling, if I see any smirking, this class is over. Do you read me, people? Over. Now, the female reproductive organs look like this.
Unfortunately, it looked more like a cow's head to me.
Now, who can tell me what these are? Yes.
The ears?
Apparently, I wasn't alone.
The ovaries. The ears would be up here.
Why don't you draw the whole lady? So we know where everything goes. Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, the whole lady.
All right.
Oh my God, everything.
Suddenly, it became very clear why Mr. Cutlip had never been married. Any man who saw women that way would have no reason to.
Now, the ovaries, of course, are the site of ovulation.
Puberty usually begins between the ages of 11 and 14 when profound hormonal changes occur. The onset of these changes is the function of a small gland called the pituitary. This gland sends chemical signals throughout the body, most notably resulting in height increase and hair growth in the genital area. Hey, knock it off. You think this is funny? Just try me. Okay, all right. Here is the female reproductive system. The uterus is composed of two main parts. The corpus,
what the hell is
the body
that?
of the organ, and its cervix,
think she's single?
or neck, and it
Looks
is
like it's
capable
from outer
of undergoing
space.
major changes during Weird. You have something to say?
No, sir.
When you get the clap because you weren't paying attention in health class, that gonna be funny too?
No.
Didn't think so.
I guess I'll never know what I missed on that first day of health class.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise? Okay, everybody take some rubbers.
Of course you'll want to keep a personal calendar. Mark the first day of each period and check to see that there are about the same number of days between periods. It's not only a useful record of past performance, but it comes in handy when you have to plan ahead. This calendar appears in an interesting booklet called Very Personally Yours. This booklet has been prepared to enlarge upon what you learn from this brief film. Among other things, the booklet explodes that old taboo against bathing during your period. Not only can you bathe, you should bathe. Because during menstruation, your perspiration glands are working overtime. Just be careful to avoid either very hot water or very cold water. In fact, it's not a good idea at any time to shock your system with extremes, any more than to let yourself get chilled or to catch cold. And as for the old taboo against exercise, that's nonsense. Exercise is good for you during menstruation. Just use common sense. When you come to think of it, most of your daily routine is on the mild side. It's going to extremes that's wrong and to be avoided.
Yes, Molly?
Miss Jensen, is it true that people can tell when you're menstruating?
No, it isn't.
But you should be more careful than ever about personal cleanliness and daintiness. Change your underwear more often, and be sure and use a deodorant. And pay more attention to your hair and your nails, and plan to wear your prettiest dress. In other words, be your most attractive self. And remember, menstruation is only a part of growing up. As you grow, your body changes from that of a young girl to that of a woman. It's becoming round with the beginnings of a bosom and the start of a real waistline and hips. And hair is beginning to grow in different places, pubic hair and underarm hair. Yes, Anne?
Miss Jensen, what about dancing? Can you when you're menstruating?
Yes, you can, with moderation. In fact, you can do most of the things you usually do. You can bathe or shower as long as you use warm water. And you can wash your hair if you're sure to dry it quickly. And you can swim if you wait until after 2 or 3 days after the beginning of your period. And you can go to dances and picnics. But it's not a very good idea to skate, or ride horseback, or play fast games like volleyball and basketball, or do strenuous dancing like square dancing, or anything that bounces you around a lot.
For one thing, a soft growth of hair appears under the arms and in the pubic area. This is true for boys as well as girls. And this is the time when a girl's figure begins to develop. Hips fill out, breasts begin to become rounder and fuller, and it is now that girls start to menstruate.
Menstruation? I don't know how to explain it. Don't you know?
A female cycle, it happens about every 28 days.
It happens to every girl. You have it every month. It means you can have babies.
Oh, I know what it is.
Something that all girls go through. You have it once a month. It's a natural process, and it enables you to have children. It took my line away.
I thought it'd be like, you know, all pouring out of you all the time. But then when I got it, it was differently, like, you know, you get it monthly, and I didn't know that. I thought you'd have it all the time.
Yeah, because I know it's going to happen soon, and so I was kind of waiting for it to happen.
I guess I thought it was more painful, because some people have cramps, you see, but I don't usually have cramps.
Often you will start to menstruate around the same time as you notice that your body is changing in other ways. Your breasts are becoming fuller, and pubic hair has started to grow. But if you start your period before your friends, or after them, it's nothing to worry about. Everyone's different. For most girls, menstruating is relatively easy. It may feel a little damp between your legs, and you may have some discomfort or period pains. There are several ways that you can relieve these cramps. Moderate exercise, putting a hot water bottle on your abdomen, taking a warm bath, or deep breathing. Sometimes pain relievers can help, but make sure you check with an adult first, your mum, the school nurse, or even your doctor.
I had to go to the office to get a pad, and I was like, could I have one of those things? And I was like, what? And I was like, you know, a pad? And she was like, sure, fine. And she didn't really react the way I expected her to react.
How do I feel about my period? We're like this. I love it. I want to hold really soft things, like my cat. It makes me feel really pure. Sometimes I just want to run on the beach. I like to twirl, maybe in slow motion. And I do it in my white spandex. And usually by the 3rd day, I really just want to dance. The ads on TV are really helpful because they use that blue liquid, and I'm like, oh, that's what's supposed to happen.
You buy Kotex, a new line of tampons, pads, and liners.
It was the beginning of summer, and no one knew me at camp. I was just a big random loser. Then, things changed. I got my period. The red badge of courage. I was the first one to get it, so I was like the expert. I became the camp gyno.
I'm a queen bee, come get it. No tripping. I got everything you need. I'm a queen.
It's a serious responsibility. From now on, you get these from me. I'm like a counselor now. Listen up, ladies. Menstruation demonstration. For these campers, I was their Joan of Arc. Your sword, your shield. It's like I'm Joan and their vag is the arc.
Oh, it hurts.
Suck it up and deal with it. I guess the power got to my head a little bit. This is your life now. Popularity can do that.
I know it's that time of month for you because I know your cycle.
But as quickly as it began, it was over. Girls stopped coming to their appointments. Then, I found out why. The whole camp started getting friggin' care packages in the mail with tampons and panty liners and candy, all perfectly timed for their cycle. It's like Santa for your vagina. How could a camp gyno compete with that?
Bob was growing up, too. He knew about the reproductive organs and nocturnal emissions. He also knew about masturbation, but he'd read that the problem was more mental than physical. He knew that the healthiest life for him was to have plenty of exercise and fresh air. He liked football, and the coach was a hero who could do no wrong. Bob tried to be as much like him as he could. His interests were mainly masculine, and his success at sports made him sure of himself. He could take girls in his stride, just as he did games. Until one day, when Bob was 16, it became apparent that his interest in girls was getting to be more than casual.
Hey, you know something?
No, what?
I had a wet dream last night.
Wet dream? What's that?
Oh, you know, some sperm comes out of your penis.
Sperm?
Yeah, sort of a sticky stuff. Guy's part of a baby. Didn't your brother ever tell you about that?
No. He never says much about anything. So that means you can start a baby.
It was something new to Bill, this business of nocturnal emissions, just as a lot of other things were new.
Every so often I get a strong sex urge, and the only way I can take care of it is to masturbate. And when I do, I feel awful. It's just like I've committed a crime or something. And it worries me, and I say, well, I won't do it anymore. And when I do, it goes away for a while, and I come back and do it again. And when I do control myself for a while, I end up with a wet dream.
George, I'm really pleased that you can tell me about this. Perhaps it's because we've known each other for so long. You know, you really don't need to be upset about this. Actually, the main thing that concerns me is that it has you upset. You know, this attitude goes back to when you were little. You probably don't even remember when you got these ideas, but obviously they're quite firmly planted in your mind. The only thing I can tell you as a doctor is that what you're doing is just part of growing up. It's something you probably will do once in a while, whether you think it's a good idea or not. I hope I can reassure you so that you aren't concerned. From a medical point of view, George, I only wish society could look at it in its proper light.
Word that Surgeon General Joycelyn Elders had been forced out came while cabinet secretaries were briefing the press on the Miami summit. Across the room, White House Press Secretary Dee Dee Myers was quickly surrounded by reporters. This is what led President Clinton to ask for her resignation. Elders was asked at a UN forum about whether or not masturbation should be taught.
In regard to masturbation, I think that that is something that it's a part of human sexuality, and it is a part of something that perhaps should be taught.
It was too much for the administration. The president spoke with elders by phone from Miami this morning, and in a statement cited differences with administration policy and my own convictions as the reason for ordering elders to go. The firing will please those who've been calling for her departure for months, among them House Speaker-to-be Newt Gingrich, who tied elders to the president personally.
Why does the president keep her? I assume he shares her values. I assume he thinks it's okay.
Joycelyn Elders was among the most controversial of Clinton appointees. The former Arkansas health director took controversial stands on the issues early on.
You're the guy who said gonorrhea was no worse than a cold. Well, I'll bet you never had a cold that felt just like that, did you?
But gee, Doc, I'm only human. It's a biological urge.
We didn't say it was criminal. We just said if you did to protect yourself. You were taught to pull in your rear when bullets were flying over you, weren't you?
Sure, Doc, but...
Then why the hell expose your front?
I must have got it on a toilet seat, Doc.
Now that's a hell of a place to take a girl. And you, did you use a rubber?
No, Doc. She said she was married.
First, there are several elementary facts to be kept in mind. Most prostitutes are infected. The average free pickup is also likely to be infected. Obviously, then, the surest way to avoid venereal disease is to avoid sexual contact with all promiscuous women, whether they demand money or not. There are many places within a woman's sex organs in which germs may escape detection, in spite of repeated examinations by even a competent physician. For this reason, any medical certificate which a prostitute may produce is worthless. Moreover, she may easily have become infected half an hour after her examination. But if, despite this danger, you should expose yourself, there are preventive measures which will diminish the risk. The most effective single method is the condom or rubber sheath, which, when correctly placed on the penis, acts as a shield between it and the hidden germs.
That looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Lots of young people hitchhike. Seems like a good way to get from one place to another. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly. One never knows when the homosexual is about. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy played baseball all afternoon, and he didn't feel like walking home, so he decided to thumb a ride. He'd done it 100 times before, and he didn't think anything was unusual when the driver struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. What Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly, if they try to win your confidence too quickly, and if they become overly personal. One never knows when the homosexual is about. He may appear normal.
Oops. Come on. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex.
about AIDS. Go on. To the unconcerned and uninformed. You think you can't get it? Well, you're wrong. Don't dismiss this. A blacklist the topic. And that ain't gonna stop it. Now, if you go about it right, you just might save your life. Don't be uptight. Come join the fight. We're gonna tell you how you can get it and how you won't. All of the do's and all of the don'ts. I got some news for you, so listen, please. It's not a black, white, or gay disease. Are you ready, Pep? Yeah, I'm set. All right, then, come on, bet.
Let's talk about sex.
So if you do come up HIV positive or have AIDS, we just want you to know that there are treatments. That's right. And the earlier detected, the better off you'll be.
Tell them, please.
Hey, yo, Pep, you get checked?
Yep. Every year, G.
Now,
you don't get AIDS for kisses, touches, mosquito bites, or hugging. Toilet seats, telephone.
Stop bugging. You get it for sex or a dirty drug needle.
Anal or oral now, people.
Women can give it to men and
men mostly to women.
The facts are simple, right, and exact.
And once you get it, there's no turning back for you.
There ain't a cure,
so you gotta be sure.
Protect yourself.
I don't have sex anymore.
Mothers might give it to their babies through the womb
or through birth. Don't be an ass and assume.
AIDS ain't got no smell or taste.
It don't care about your race.
You see a nice kind face?
You think you're safe?
I'm sorry, that's just not the case.
There's no debate.
Conversate
with your mate
and don't wait until it's too late.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that make me. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex.
Oh, ladies, all the ladies, loud now, help me out. Come on, all the ladies, let's practice safe sex. All right, ladies, all the ladies, loud now, help me out. Come on, all the ladies, let's practice safe sex. All right.
Yo, Saul, you know what else will stop the spread of AIDS? If everybody stopped cheating and messing around and just stay with one person
and wear condoms.
Let's talk about sex.
When we hooked up the first time, saying this is it, I had enough. Cause like we haven't seen each other since the night when you said you wanted unprotected sex. What? Then you come around again and say, baby, I miss you, swear I got tested today. Trust me, results can take up to a month, they say. I say we're using a condom cause we're not getting infected. Ooh, 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 ooh. Do you know how to use it right? Ooh, 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 ooh. This time, I'm telling you, we are never ever getting STIs together. We are never ever getting STIs together. HIV and STIs and the AIDS don't talk to me. Cause we are never ever getting STIs together. Like, ever. My teacher says there's female and male condoms. There are also dental dams and glass. So they called me up and were like, I don't want to use protection. And I was like, well, I don't want an STI. And they were like, would you do it with me if I use protection? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, San Francisco is a really great city to live in. I feel like we have tons of resources available to us.
We also have tons of STDs.
Totally.
Well, I have herpes. And when I got herpes, I felt entirely super alone and freaked out and stressed. Even though this is, as a dear friend of ours likes to say, everybody has herpes.
The last 2 STIs that I've gotten, which are crabs and gonorrhea, no one contacted me. Crabs, you kind of know you have crabs. And if you've never had crabs, let me tell you, They're literally little crabs with claws, like go like this. Yeah, they scream in your pubic region.
Yeah.
So
oh my God.
when you have crabs, you know it.
I think there's just this cloak of silence around STIs. People don't talk about them, and it makes it seem like they're a bigger deal than they are a lot of the times, because you don't know just who has them, or that any of your friends have them. So I was just thinking, like, if me and Kelly could talk about our STIs and, you know, still be the vivacious individuals that we are.
I love the word vivacious.
You like that one?
It's good.
I'm a writer. I don't know. It's been a blessing, because it's made me have to think about who I sleep with, because I can't sleep with people anymore that I can't have a conversation with, or that if I'm afraid about them having weird, antiquated notions about who gets STIs.
Like, if I'm in the bedroom with someone and we're about to get sexy, I don't feel hesitant to be like, hey, when was the last time you were tested? I know maybe it might not be the sexiest thing to say in that moment, but I think it's an important thing to say in that moment. And you know what? The response is genuinely pretty positive. People are like, oh my God, I'm so happy you asked me.
And the way that I've kind of gotten over that anxiety is just by being more open with the people around me about the fact that I have herpes, and not just with my sexual partners, but with my friends. And like, you know, if I'm having an outbreak, not being being afraid to like mention it. I mean, you would mention it if you had a cold, or if like you're twisted your ankle.
I currently have a sore throat.
Thanks for disclosing that, Kelly.
You see, all those changes that have happened to their bodies add up to one great step forward. They're now capable of reproducing themselves, of becoming fathers and mothers of children following the process called sexual intercourse. It didn't take civilized man long to discover that the only workable way to use this remarkable power was for a man and a woman to pair off and to raise their children as a family. And whatever else we say here, we must recognize that our society accepts the married state as right and regards sexual intercourse outside marriage as irresponsible and possibly disastrous. Each one of us has to make up his or her own mind on this, and we're not trying to influence anyone. Facts are our business just now. But you can use your knowledge with responsibility and real love, or you can use it wantonly and with mere animal appetite. It's your affair. But it is a problem that any civilized person must face.
The day I lost my virginity, it was with some girl I was seeing. She was 17, I was 15. What I got emotionally from having sex was beat up. I never thought my spirit could get so tore up from something because I never learned about what sex could do to you emotionally. It was just, you know, don't get no girl pregnant, basically. It's like it gave me a twisted mentality. I couldn't trust people no more. I was always second-guessing relationships. I felt so lost. I felt like I'll never be able to get out of it. I felt trapped. I felt bound. I felt chained. I felt like a slave. In that period, I was angry for the fact that I felt I needed to prove my love to someone, and angry for the fact no matter how hard I proved it, I never felt it back. There was no way I could possibly get out of this pain. There was no way I could possibly change who I am. There was no way I could possibly feel better from what I felt. It's like there was just no hope. All hope was lost and gone. I didn't even think about a better day. It was just, this is today and this is how it will always be from here on in.
Why does Texas continue with abstinence education programs when they don't seem to be working? In fact, I think we have the third highest teen pregnancy rate in the country among all the states.
Abstinence works.
But we are the third highest teen pregnancy. We have the third highest teen pregnancy rate among all states in the country. The questioner's point is, it doesn't seem to be working. Abstinence education.
It works. Maybe it's the way it's being taught or the way that it's being applied out there. But the fact of the matter is, it is the best form of to teach our children.
Can you give me a statistic suggesting it works?
I'm just going to tell you from I'm going to tell you from my own personal life. Abstinence works. And the point is, if we're not teaching it, and if we're not impressing it upon them, then no. But if the point is, you know, we're going to go stand up here and say, listen, y'all go have sex and go have the whatever is going on, and we'll worry with that. And here's the ways to have safe sex. I'm sorry. You can call me old-fashioned if you want, but that is not what I'm going to stand up in front of the people of the state of Texas and say that's the way we need to go and forget about abstinence.
That's not what I mean, with respect, Governor, that's not what the questioner is asking. The questioner is simply saying we're spending money on abstinence education. We're the third highest teen pregnancy rate in the country. Is there a problem, disconnect between one and the other?
I don't know.
I remember in school one time, I had a teacher who was talking about abstinence. And she said, imagine you're a stick of gum, and when you engage in sex, that's like getting chewed. And then if you do that lots of times, you're going to become an old piece of gum. And who's going to want you after that? For me, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm that chewed up piece of gum. And that's how easily it is to feel like you no longer have worth, you no longer have value. Why would it even be worth screaming out? Why would it even make a difference if you are rescued? Your life still has no value.
That was Elizabeth Smart speaking last week at Johns Hopkins University about how abstinence-only education made her reluctant to come forward during her 9-month abduction. Currently, of the 37 states that require abstinence to be a part of sex education, 26 of those states require students be taught that abstinence is the best method to prevent pregnancy, even when the research shows us that abstinence-only education doesn't work. A 2011 study from the University of Georgia analyzed pregnancy and birth data from 48 states in order to evaluate the effectiveness of those states' sex education policies. And the study found that even when you control for socioeconomic status, education, ethnicity, access to health care, abstinence-only education does not necessarily result in abstinent behavior. The researchers concluded that, quote, abstinence-only education is a state policy, is ineffective in preventing teenage pregnancy, and may actually be contributing to the high teenage pregnancy rates.
Did you know that teen pregnancy rates in the United States are higher than in any other industrialized country? Sex education is supposed to help prevent against things like unwanted pregnancy, STDs, and HIV, but it's not doing as well as it should. This is why. Ever since the Reagan administration, the United States has pumped billions of dollars into abstinence-only education. Adults don't want teens to have sex, and they think teaching them about condoms will make them more likely to have sex, so they say no sex until marriage, and sometimes that's all teens get in terms of sex education. But guess what? Teens are still having sex. 58% of US high school students have had sex, and a full 80% of evangelical Christians admit to having sex before marriage. So it seems this whole abstinence-only plan isn't working. In fact, states with abstinence-only sex education also have the highest rates of teen pregnancies. Coincidence? No. Studies show that abstinence-only programs have literally no effect on getting teens to abstain from sex. And researchers have found that teens who received abstinence-only education are less likely to use contraception. But teens who receive comprehensive sex education, like learning about condoms and birth control, are 60% less likely to get pregnant or to get somebody else pregnant. When we give teens abstinence-only education, it doesn't mean they won't have sex. They'll still have sex, but now they're uneducated and unprepared. But we still keep pumping millions of dollars into a broken system. Only 22 states plus DC require sex education to be taught in schools. That's less than half the country. Of those, only 11 states in DC require schools to teach about contraception. And of those 11 states, only 5 require the information to be medically accurate. That means that out of 50 states plus DC, less than 10% of the country is doing it right. Meanwhile, other countries that have more progressive attitudes about sex education are starting to teach their teens about sexting and porn and other issues that teens have to deal with in real life. But for whatever reason, here in the United States, we seem to be stuck in a different decade where we don't like to talk about sex, we don't want to teach kids about sex, and so we say no sex until marriage. But clearly that system just isn't working. It's only depriving our teens of education and ultimately leading to uninformed and unsafe decisions.
Cuando se viene al sexo, parece que siempre se trata de la penetración. La gente piensa que uno solo tiene sexo cuando uno penetra a otro o es penetrado, pero hay diferentes tipos de sexo. Para unos el mejor sexo es con el tocar de una mano. Y esto sí es sexo legítimo. Esto es sexo verdadero. No siempre tiene que terminar en penetración cuando uno coge. Porque todo se trata de lo que se siente bien.
Porn is different from sex in real life. Let's find out how. Porn star penises are 6 to 9 inches. Civilian penis? 5 to 7. And while porn stars have very little hair down there, in real life 65% of women and 85% of men do. Indeed, female porn privates tend to sport a similar look. But real-world vaginas come in all shapes, sizes and colours. As for arousal, real people need 10 to 12 minutes to get going, while porn stars... Male performers can hump for days, but in real life 75% of men ejaculate within 3 minutes. And though porn starlets seem to always have an orgasm through penetration alone, 71% of women don't.
Spinal cord injuries is a very good one to start off with.
Okay.
People with spinal cord injuries don't have sensation in certain parts of their body, for example, their genitalia. People with penises, they might need to use drugs such as Cialis, Levitra, and Viagra. Injuries that are like at the lower part of their spine often use injections into their penis, causes an instant boner. Insta-boner! You can also use Viagra to increase lubrication.
So a lot of folks on Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook were asking about paraplegics. They're not eliminated from having sex.
Yes.
Anyone with a disability can have sex, right?
Anyone with a disability, yes.
What are some of the things that can assist them?
There are wedges that can help elevate hips, or for your head, or for your back. Sex toys such as vibrators to help people who don't have as much sensation. Cock rings are actually really good for people who have a spinal cord injury.
Huh, because it can help maintain
It helps maintain an erection. Also, there's this wonderful thing, it's called a love wedge. It's a chair that's a chair that moves back and forth like this.
Can help with the actual movement.
Help with the actual movement.
Cool.
There are actually people that can be sexually active in their wheelchair. The good thing about most wheelchairs is they have the ability to elevate.
Oh, dang!
I'm like my own little boner. Also, we have the ability to tilt back like this, and also to recline.
Can attendants play a role in sex?
Yes, it's all about communication with your partner, what your partner is okay with and what you're okay with. If needed, the attendant can be in the room. It also has to do if the attendant is okay with it to help them.
What about chronic pain?
Sometimes they can be into kink and BDSM, and with that, they can control their pain. Or they can also use sex as therapy.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard stories of people with chronic pain where sex would make the pain go away.
When it comes to using your bits, everyone likes something different. Some boys like girls, some girls like boys. Sometimes boys like boys, and girls like girls. Some folk like everyone, and some folk don't like anyone, at least not sexually. Some people don't agree with the gender they were assigned at birth, and some people just want to do their own thing. And all of these are just fine, no matter what any book, bigot, or bully might tell you. Our sexualities and genders aren't one or the other, it's all spread over a whole wide spectrum of preferences and just things that feel natural to us. We're complicated. Side note, if what you're into is against the law, don't do it. If anyone involved, including yourself, is not a legal consenting adult, just don't do it. As someone whose first time was the result of emotional manipulation, it's important to me that you hear this. You never have to do anything you don't want to do. You are never obliged to sleep with someone, even if that person is already your partner. Any type of sexual activity where someone has not given their consent or has revoked it is sexual assault or rape. And what is consent? Consent is a willing, sober, and continuous yes. On the other hand, if you are ever deciding whether or not to sleep with someone who has not or cannot give you their consent, then I want you to remember this little song. Don't. Now, sadly, rape and sexual assault does happen, and if it has happened to you, then please do not feel guilty or ashamed, and certainly don't feel afraid to come forward. It is never your fault.
I like to play with gender roles because it confuses people. I like it when a guy thinks that I'm a girl and then figures out that I'm not a girl. I love that.
I may be male and I may be straight, but I'm not completely rigid and narrow way of what you would call masculine.
I don't know where I stand in the whole manly versus, feminine.
I feel like I have both masculine and feminine qualities. I don't feel one way or the other.
I'm just not female.
Everywhere you go, there are gender messages. There's no real way to make a decision in the world without having to think about gender.
It's all the time, every day, 24/7.
Come on. Guys are supposed to wear baggy clothing. They gotta dress cool and they gotta match.
It's supposed to be like curvaceous and supposed to have like big boobs and big butt and skinny little waist.
Wearing the shirt that I'm wearing right now, the purple color, automatically people think that I'm gay.
Dad will take me out and just, all right, son, I'm gonna teach you how to jump a car today.
A woman has to clean the house, they have to take care of the kids, they gotta wash the dishes, and that's what women are for.
Which, honestly, I think goes back to, cavemen. People think that the whole gay community is, sex crazy and they just want, sex, and that's all they think about.
You don't want to be a prude because then no one's gonna like you, but you don't want to be a slut because then no one's gonna want you.
Nobody on my cross-country team that I know of knows that I'm gay.
I think people would be surprised that I'm bisexual.
I just happen to fit on the transgender line.
That's kind of one of the things that makes, the world a beautiful place, is if you have change and you have difference. Because if everything was the same, then that's just boring.
Sexual health education has been a major focus for me, is because I realize the severe detriment and destruction that can be caused by the lack of sexual health. The most common cause of poverty is children being born to children. And we see all of the consequences of the lack of sexual health. Things like just teenage pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, HIV, sexual dysfunction. So we see all of these things in our society, and it makes up such a great part of our life. And yet, we spend so little time talking about it, teaching about it, educating our young people and our people about it. We could educate our parents. We could educate our communities. We could educate our politicians. We must know that if we want to have a sexually healthy society, it's about education, education, education.